Okay, folks, I just got back from watching Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And I had to see it tonight because otherwise I was going to get behind on watching Eric July's outrage videos, because one of the things he's outraged about now is the fact that Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas in the Ant-Man movies, uh, drops the word socialism in a positive light. Now, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but basically he discovers a somewhat socialist society and says something to the effect of, I know socialism is a charged word, but there's a lot we can learn from them. Okay, all right, there's the throwaway line, and it really is a throwaway line because he practically gets interrupted by the end of the line, and then they're back on track with the rest of the movie. But, of course, this is enough to generate outrage in entire videos for some people. And I don't really see why. I don't think that's necessarily fair, and it certainly isn't fair to call the movie dog crap if you haven't seen it. You know, there are a lot of movies that I haven't seen that I've heard are bad, and the most that I can tell people is that I've heard that they're bad, but I'm not going to declare that definitively until I myself have seen it, because I've seen movies that, other people hate that I just thought were the best of the best. And then I've seen other movies that people think are the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I've thought, what even was the point of that movie? So knowing that my opinion, whatever it's going to be, is going to be subjective, I'm not going to let other people control what it is I think about the movie. And so I would just give a caution to anybody who's going to comment about the quality of a movie like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Why don't you watch it first? Why don't you watch Wakanda Forever before you call it dog crap? Why don't you watch whatever it is, even Tommy Vietor's The Room. I've never seen that. I've heard it's the worst movie ever made. I don't know that for a fact because I've never seen it, so I'm not going to comment on that as if I'm objectively qualified in any way, shape, or form. When I've seen the movie, then I'll be able to comment on it. Okay, so what's the deal with socialism anyway? Now, I understand that there's a lot of people who immediately want to tie socialism to the fact that countries like the USSR, countries like China, countries like North Korea, they've all had their time with communism, and that time was a bloody time. No doubt, no doubt. When you basically spend your time trying to tell people in what directions they should go rather than letting them find their own paths, you are going to break a few eggs, as I think Stalin would have put it. Now, that's not to say that everything that any socialist endeavor has accomplished has been a bad thing. I hate to break it to you, but there are socialist elements that exist within America now, within American government now, and a lot of people are living off of those elements in ways that they might not have been able to live off of given given what was available at the time. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these things, however they work, were invented for a reason. And one of those reasons that people thought was just there wasn't enough money or means in the private industry to make these kinds of things work. Welfare systems, such as they are, is it clear that we could just devolve everything onto private charity and it would all work fine? I think there's a lot of fear involved in that, because I know a lot of people are finding their subsistence in social programs, government social programs as it is, and they don't want to toss their fates to the uncaring private world, essentially. They want to feel like government at least cares about them and is listening to them and is basically meeting their needs in a way consistent with their desires. Whereas the greedy capitalists out there, if you were to leave it up to them, then what they would do is they would just do whatever it is they wanted. And, if you benefit from it, great, but, really it's all about them. But I would argue that takes a very shallow view of what capitalism is, because the idea behind socialism is that people democratically vote for what it is for the way things are going to be distributed in a society. Instead of capitalism following the money, what socialism does is it follows the popular will and basically says, okay, this is what the people think are fair, and therefore this is the way that things are going to go. Now, usually that, this is what the people think are fair becomes more of devolves down into this is what the elites think is fair, and gets more ideology driven than fact driven. It's not based on empirical evidence, it's based just on where people think things should go, and therefore it causes a lot of suffering on account of resources being allocated to where they're really not needed. Now, there's been a lot of difficulty in capitalism's ability to fight off the perception that, capitalism is the greedy system and socialism is the caring system. But I would argue this. Capitalism may be the most democratic system of all time if you count dollars as votes. The free market and capitalism may be the most socialist and democratic system of all time if you count dollars as votes. Because what are you doing every time you enter into a social exchange? It's some exchange of money for product or money for service. You're basically saying, I am going to work in some way, shape, or form, and then my time and labor that I put into that work is going to be translated to me as a concrete instrument of value that I can then trade for some service or product that I desire more than the instrument of value. So I go to work for a company, they pay me in dollars, I take those dollars and I pay for things that I feel like I need. And the thing about the free market and the thing about corporations is that they look around and see how people are voting with their dollars and saying, I want this, I want more of this, I want some of this, I want some of this, I want some of this. And these votes aren't happening on a once every 2 year, once every 4 year, or even once every month kind of plan. This is happening every single day, multiple times a day, thousands of times a day. Millions of times a day. All of these transactions are taking place, and the market is reacting to what people want. And the only way capitalism survives and thrives is by meeting the needs as stated by the people who are voting with their dollars. So even though you're not actually trying to make a political statement when you go to Starbucks and you give them $20 for a cup of coffee, you are telling the market that there is a demand for this and that you want you to see your resources invested in keeping up products like Starbucks coffee. Now that's telling the industry what it needs to know, and the industry will respond by raising up as many companies as it needs to support that need, trying to either keep pace with Starbucks or exceed Starbucks, and find their own little niches and survive there. Every time a dollar leaves your hand, that is your democratic vote towards what it is you want to see more of. And that's one of the reasons why people say that it's important to spend your money on corporations and products from corporations that you feel align with your political values, because it could be that if you want more mentions of socialism in your movies, then, on my part, it certainly didn't help that I just gave, $20 to AMC theaters, telling them, hey, I want to see the movie that's got a mention of socialism in its script. So, of course, AMC might say, oh, well, he likes a movie with socialism in the script. Maybe we'll ask the movie companies to produce more movies with socialism in the script. So that's the kind of feedback loop you get. But you can't say that that's not a democratically elected transaction right there. You can't say that that's not a democratic request from the people who went to see these things. Now, the sad thing is that, just like any political party, of course, I didn't go to the movies because I wanted to see a mention of socialism in the script. I wanted to see Ant-Man. I wanted to see the Wasp. I wanted to see Kang the Conqueror. I wanted to see I wanted to see how this movie fits into the rest of the Marvel universe and see what the whole thing about Quantumania is about. That's all I wanted. Now, it just so happens that as a part of the political party that makes up that particular movie, you also have this mention of socialism, and some people are going to get the wrong idea and think that what my dollars were paying for was more of that. Okay, so that is one of the reasons for all the protests you see about ideological purity. in your consumption. Don't consume things from people who are politically opposed to you, or what you might end up paying for is more political opposition to yourself. I understand that, but at the same time, I hate shooting myself in the foot and depriving myself of what it is I'm working for just so that I can't. It's almost like I work so that I can enjoy these things, and now you're telling me not to enjoy these things. So that what? So that what? What am I shooting myself in the foot for? Tell me. I'd rather shoot back. Metaphorically speaking, I'd just rather shoot back. I'd rather basically say, here is what I support, here is what I believe in. I'd like to see that, complain to the companies, tell them I'd like to see more of this and less of this, and hopefully they'll react. But, as far as depriving myself of all the enjoyment that I am trying to make a life out of, in my consumption, that's not one of my favorite things to do. Shooting myself in the foot has never been one of my favorite things to do. So basically, the couple of takeaways that I would say as far as this Ant-Man movie goes and the socialism uproar that's now being generated is, maybe instead of trying to downplay socialism, which is already embedded in our society in a way that's going to be very, very difficult to remove, if ever, why don't you start trumpeting capitalism as the ultimate in socialism, in that all of these votes taking place all the time presents a better and more accurate picture of what the people want than anything else. What do the people really want? And if you disagree with the corporations and how they're doing business, you can tell them directly. Or you could stop buying their products. Or you could just basically, maybe you can try joining the government and seeing if you could override the corporations, knowing that in the process, you're actually overriding the will of the people. Yeah, see, it's like you've got two different power structures at odds here. And you think that the corporations are the bad guys, but the corporations may be more in tune with the actual understanding of the people than you actually know. And the government may be the one, kicking aside the will of the people and saying, well, trust us elites. We've got all the information. Otherwise, why did you vote for us? Well, we voted for you because usually there's nothing better to vote for. Sad but true. I'm Mike Partika. Thank you for listening, and please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk to you later.